Heyo, it's OmniDog from OmniDog's Vault. Here with my co-host Taylor Brown and another creator interview. And I looked it up online. And this is how I think you say it.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Stjepan Sejic. Am I close?
Almost.
Almost?
Somehow is the last name that really trips people over.
Sejic, yes. Stjepan Sejic.
It's the J in the end that people just don't like in America. Like they just don't understand how to approach it.
No, I don't.
Did you clear it up for us, or do you want to remain a mystery?
Oh yeah, I'm leaving that a mystery. I've had way too many years of entertainment with this. I plan on keeping that train going.
Yeah,
well, Mesh tried to convince me it was like Sean Connery saying it. Stjepan Sejic.
Yeah, that's what I read first. That it was pronounced like Sean Connery said it, and then you were in a chat with the Omni Bros, and you said you clutched your chest when I said it that way. I'm like, well, that must not be the right way to say it. I gave it my best shot.
it's good enough, trust me.
At least you were close.
And he is the creator, writer, illustrator, everythinger of the amazing book Harleen, which came out a couple months ago. Did it come out in February?
The actual series started in, I think, November, if I'm not mistaken, or October. The single issues, we had like a 3-issue run where it's like each issue was 60 pages long, oversized, and then the hardcover came out, I think, in February.
And I'm not trying to lather you up, but Harleen is so far, it's May, and this is my favorite book of the year, and I read a lot of books.
Oh, thank you.
I just thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, it's a project that's been developed for over a long time. Like the whole 3-book story arc overall. Like this will be the first book of the arc. Is meant to be kind of a life journey of Dr. Harleen Quinzel, and so in the first one it's the Arkham arc. Then comes the second planned arc was the Harley and Joker arc, or as I used to kind of workshop name it, the freaking Bonnie and Clyde arc. And then after that is the Thelma and Louise arc, which you can imagine who that's about. Basically, it's about Harley kind of taking back control over her life and befriending Ivy and leaving the Joker and all that stuff. With all of that, like there's also been like a plan of doing like a single story arc again, where that's about Poison Ivy, which is in full continuity with Harleen. And then eventually, who knows, maybe even a Selena arc, and just a kind of a not Birds of Prey, Gotham City Sirens kind of a book also.
Wow, you're answering all of my questions and you're fulfilling all of the dreams I had for your series.
Yeah, but however, here's the real problem with all of this. While on one side I have the stories in my brain, and DC is very eager to indulge my creative nonsense. There's a problem where my own stuff brings me way more money, and so it just comes down to that problem of I could do these things, or I could just do more Sunstone in any one of my other books and just cash in big, because that's the weird thing is like while to a lot of people who are into superheroes, I'm known as the guy who drew Aquaman and mostly as the guy who made Harleen. To everybody else, and I mean a lot of people, I'm the guy who made Sunstone, so it's kind of one of those weird paradoxes where it's like you get so many stories to tell, and just that the time is limited, and you kind of have to pick and choose the ones that actually have the best chance of making the biggest impact. And shockingly enough, Sunstone is leading that by far.
That's your creator-owned thing with Image.
Yeah.
Right. So are you actively, I don't know if you can say, are you actively working on the second arc of the Harleen kind of killing?
Oh, I've been actively working on that for a long time, but the problem is, like, right now, like, my plan isn't to go to follow up Harleen with more Harleen. The plan is to actually go with Isley to kind of set things up, because things are going to tie into each other in a big way, and I have a really, really powerful story plan for kind of Poison Ivy's origin arc. It's going to be basically the same size as Harleen, but again, the problem is, I have to kind of commit to it, and that means I have to fit it into the schedule and everything, because at this point I'm already working on 4 books at the same time, and while developing other projects. So it's kind of one of those, it's like I'm booked for a decade in advance, and I'm just kind of trying to basically murder myself with work.
Well, it's good to be overworked than underworked. That's a good problem.
Yeah, but there's that point where you get so overworked that, again, it becomes its own special kind of a problem. I have a tendency of kind of letting my health slip away, and it's caused me problems before. I used to, like, I have some chronic issues that, I'm a guy, so therefore I'm just gonna walk it off because I'm an idiot, like that. So I keep ignoring it because I'm like, yeah, but I could just sit down and work for 5 more hours and just extend through the night because this is fun and I want to tell a story and these panels are just flowing. And then all of a sudden, hey, I gotta go see a doctor again and again and again. So it's kind of like one of those weird things. It's like storytelling is an obsession, but it tends to become an unhealthy one if you let it go too far.
Right. I saw that's what you wrote on Twitter, that it had become an unhealthy obsession with you.
Yeah, I'm literally, like, I can't even fall asleep these days because I go to bed, I lie in bed, and then for 4 hours my brain is like running simulations of dialogues and everything. I'm just like, can you just stop?
And you're an in-demand creator too, so this is a good position for you to be in. Even though you feel like you're overworked, your work is in high demand. You have Sunstone fans, and now you have your Harleen fans, and your Aquaman fans.
Yeah, but I also have my Death Vigil fans.
Right.
I also even have my Ravine fans, which still baffles me. It was my first ever attempt at writing, and it was an absolute lore drowned mess,
I like Ravine. I have that up. I looking right on
Ravine with volume 2, Ravine kind of shapes up into being the book that it's supposed to be. But with volume 1, I was a beginner writer, and I overindulged in the lore building to the point where I went midichlorians with everything. When you kind of start over explaining every aspect of a world, and you're just like, but my audience, they need to know now how crazy layered this is. So I'm just gonna dump it all into the first book. And meanwhile, the characters are kind of waving from the distance, going like, hey, I think we matter too.
Yeah, that's right. I had forgotten how much I really liked Ravine. That was my first exposure to you. I had just picked it up because, of course, I like the art, and then it turned out I like the writing too.
Yeah.
And so now you are strictly not illustrating for anyone but yourself from now on. You're writing and illustrating your own stuff from now on. Is that correct?
Yes. Not because I have any issues with any other writer. It's just that I have a way of telling a story that doesn't work with other people's scripts, because people script comics in a way, either in a way where it's like they're used to working with other comic artists. So it's going to be like 5 panels per page, and that's it, and then 5 panels per next page, and it's all just kind of really chunked out, and it doesn't feel natural to my own storytelling flow. Or they will provide me with a Marvel method of script where I absolutely abhor that one, just because it generally doesn't have a defined dialogue. And dialogue for me is crucially important, because the body acting and the expressiveness of a character comes from what they're saying. I have to make sure that they look invested in what they're dealing with and what they're saying. And that's why the Marvel method never worked for me. So the only way to actually do them right and do them the way I want them to look is for me to make the whole thing.
So whenever it comes to creating a book like Harleen or Sunstone, do you script beforehand, or do you kind of do both at the same time?
So my creative process first for pretty much any book that I do is I get the basic idea, basic concept of what I want, the basic goal of the book, the basic themes. And then after that, I go through a process of character anchoring. And it's a weird process where I make these just kind of drawings and snippets and little strips that just have characters speaking in a relevant way and about a relevant enough topic where it's gonna anchor them mentally for me for that story. And once I have enough of that, once that's reached critical mass, I'm confident enough that I have the voice of the character that I need, that I have their personality anchored. So, I don't get distracted. I don't start writing them in a completely different way, because I can always look back to my anchor points and go like, yeah, no, this is it. Recently, like for instance, like one of the stories that I kind of have planned for a long time also is a Superman story. And for that, I kind of had to anchor who Superman is to me. And I made all these like drawings and, these aspects of him as Clark, aspects of him as Superman. And in those things, like in those single lines of dialogue, I can always kind of anchor myself back from, letting the character go astray, because, when you're a writer, you kind of tend to go, crazy sometimes, where it's like, oh yeah, but what if this character has this kind of a mood swing all of a sudden? And it's like you get stupid ideas that kind of, take you off your course. And writing in general is this kind of a process of herding cats. You want these characters to feel random and human enough for people to buy them as people, but at the same time they still have to kind of loosely stick to that plot, because they have to get from point A to point B, and you can't let them just wander off the beaten path. And then after that, of course, once I have the characters done, then comes the basic outline, where I take my basic idea of plot, I chunk it down into smaller sections and go like, okay, this is about 20 pages, 40 pages, 30 pages, 10 pages. Once I've done that, I go into those smaller sections, outline what's happening to those, start writing in the dialogues, and then past that point, it's pretty easy.
Pretty easy.
It sounds difficult, but
yeah,
it's easier for you.
It's an exercise in madness, but there's a method to it.
I wanted to touch on something you said about Harleen. I think in one of the last two times I saw you in the chat on OmniBros, and I didn't get a chance to focus on it. You were saying how I believe it was something about their relationship, how one of the attractions in their relationship was one of them thought they could fix the other.
What I was talking about was my method of writing a relationship in general.
Okay.
Any kind of relationships, you as a reader have to understand why these characters think it's gonna work. And even when working on a relationship that's doomed to fail, you still have to understand why these characters felt there was an attraction, there was a chemistry, why they thought there was a chance to save this relationship. This is something that I did in Harleen, and that I'm doing in multiple stages now through Sunstone as well, where you have a couple that's, they're gonna fail, and you can see the cracks in the veneer of their relationships, and you can see those cracks spreading. And that's kind of one of those things, is like, you have to, like, even in a relationship that's as messed up as Harley and Joker's, my goal is to make you understand just why she thinks she can salvage it, why she thinks this is worth fighting for. And it's a layered process. In Harleen, one of the biggest challenges was always building her up in a nuanced way, where once you read it, you understand what's happening. Once you reread it, you fully start grasping on the concepts that have been there from the beginning. Her own, emotional distance from other people, her own sexual repression that kind of stems from her experiences in college. The sense of being judged for trying to start any kind of relationship that follows her through her work, because the same people that mocked her in college are now working in the same work environment with her. She constantly distances herself. She's constantly lonely. She's constantly, holds this. She's constantly guarded and shielded, and all of a sudden she's in this very private environment where it's just her and him. And for some reason, he seems like this dangerous, deranged person actually seems to be into her, and it's getting to her. It's getting to her in a way that she never really expected it to get to her. and she doesn't know how to process it. Like, she's a psychiatrist, and that's the brilliance of the character of Harley Quinn, is she's a psychiatrist who can genuinely, she can diagnose her own issues, and yet, just like an addict, like, she doesn't know, and she doesn't do anything about it. It's like an addict to a drug. It's like, you know what your problem is, you're just not doing anything to fix it. You're not, first of all, you're not seeking help, you're not doing anything of your own volition, you're just going back to it constantly. And that's kind of one of the character notes that I have for Harley Quinn, for Harleen, is she has an addict type behavior. And this
Mhm.
is something that I like, that's going to be explored, that the plan is to explore that further on as the story progresses in the future arcs.
So, did you come to DC with this idea, or did they come to you wanting you to do a Black Label book?
No, at some point, my editor Andy Corey was interested in having me pitch a book for Vertigo imprint back then, and I was like, I don't really like. I'm already overloaded with my creator-owned stuff, but I have this concept for a Harley book. Hear me out, And he was always very cooperative with me, so he's like, okay, let me see it. And so he said, like, he was gonna arrange a pitch and send it forward, and there was no feedback on it for a while. So then I did a thing where I went and did the last, I think, 6 or 7 pages of the first issue, and that's the ones where she actually meets him in his cell, where where they have their first conversation. And I did those layouts, and then I just sent them to Andy and went, could you attach this to them? And he mailed it forward, and I think it was either the same day or the very next day. Yeah, those. That I got a reply. Yeah, you're greenlit.
Let me show that. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So let's see. You're the next DC idea then would be Isley, as you call it.
Yes. However, I am making something before that, a short story that we're gonna have published pretty soon. But then, yeah, after that, that's got the plan is to do Isley. I've already did the groundwork and did the outline and everything. So at this point, it's just basically about slotting it in and just kind of figuring things out.
Is that also going to be a 3-issue book for Isley?
Yeah, the plan with all of these books is to kind of have the same format, where it's like 3 oversized books and then trade or a hardcover or whatever.
You're really speaking to the collector inside of me, because if we get 3 of these books, I'm gonna be really happy having them all next to each other. So
yeah, those books do look nice. I wish I had some. I think mine got lost somewhere in the shipping or something, and I have to ask DC to send me again.
They are beautiful. Growing up, can you think of, or in your teenage years, or even currently, who do you think your biggest influences were as a comic creator?
Oh, the influences are it's a long, complicated story with me, because as I was growing up, I kind of had my own way of drawing comics. But then when I started getting influences is when I screwed myself over for about a decade. Because problem with influences when you're an artist, when you're just developing, is you tend to kind of stray off your own path and just start embracing other people's, solutions to a visual problem. And when I was a teenager, I just started. I was ending high school and started college when I discovered the '90s art of Michael Turner, Mark Silvestri, and Alex Ross, and obsessively I abandoned my own path, or my own artistic path, and started incorporating their stuff into my work. And now, don't get me wrong, like, it got me hired eventually, and I started working on Witchblade, and it was a dream come true. But the problem with living in the shadow of artistic influences is you start feeling like you're writing your whole life in another person's handwriting, and it drains on you, and it drained on me to the point where, about 8 years ago or something, even more, I think 10 years ago, now, I had an absolute burnout. Like I was actually considering leaving comics altogether and just going to video games. I've had experiences working in games, so I was like, I have my options. But the problem was, like, I've lost my path because I've let these influences, get to me. And then, oddly enough, the moment I turned towards my own way of making things, I started making Sunstone, a webcomic, and it changed everything for me.
Yeah, you definitely have your own style at this point. Definitely. Taylor, do you have anything you want to ask right now?
Yeah, I mean, you said it's around a little after midnight where you're at, and you're kind of starting your day in a way.
Yep.
So, what does your routine look like? Your work routine every day?
My work routine generally is, I'll wake up, chug down at least 2 cups of coffee, then do some warm-ups for like projects that are currently being planned. So in this case, like it's The Queen and the Woodborn. It's a new book that I'm developing, and so I'll lay down some character anchor points for that, and then after that, I'm gonna get myself another cup of coffee. Pound down about 2 pages of Sunstone or something, whatever I'm working on, and then during that I'm going to get myself about 3 or 4 more cups of coffee and just live that good healthy life, and then maybe later we'll go for a walk.
So Sunstone is you're ongoing.
Yeah, I mean, Sunstone is planned as a 20-volume story arc, 20-volume series consisting of 3 major story arc and 1 final book. And at that point, it's gonna be done.
Well, you certainly get into the intricacies of relationships in that book. That is it. As far as relationships go, that book is extremely interesting and it's actually pretty insightful.
Yeah, Sunstone, like, ironically, it was a book that wasn't even supposed to exist altogether. Like, it's a thing that just happened, and once I decided to take it seriously, like, I had to make a choice early on when I started. Like, when I realized that it was going to be a comic, I had to make a choice whether or not I was going to make a porn comic or I was going to make a slice of life comic that's about people who are Kingsters. And the answer really was simple, because porn comics were everywhere. Like it was an oversaturated market. It was like you weren't really gonna do anything new with that. But this wasn't really done. To this day, I've seen only a few of them done competently. So I decided, I was gonna make a slice of life romance. And the moment that settled in, well, that's when I started thinking about these characters in a very different way, where it's like, I had to I didn't have to think about what they were going to do to each other, but what they were thinking, how they were feeling about the situations, how they were handling the situation, how, all of a sudden these characters went from just being, just doodles to being fully fledged, fully fleshed out characters. And the more I wrote about them, the more human they started feeling, and the more it evolved my own writing. Really, like all the nuances of writing that I have in Harleen, pay homage and tribute to everything that I've done through Sunstone. And when you start exploring these topics, you start, you go into this world of exploring the, connotations and connections between sexuality and relationship and emotional stuff, and it's fascinating. You start realizing the inherent humor in things. You start realizing just how much there is to write about it, and it really is an endless well. Like, through the original story arc of Sunstone, I'm handling one team, but through the story arc of Mercy, I get to handle 3 or 4 other teams that were never even properly touched in Sunstone, because it wasn't a time or place. Then when I get to the story arc of Jasper, that's gonna again bring its own, a barrel of monkeys of teams that I get to address there, and that's just, it's amazing. Like I've never, like, when I first finished chapter 1, I actually had a panic attack thinking, I can't write a romance. What am I thinking? So I spent about a few months trying to figure out how I can involve aliens and spaceships into that somehow and turn it into some sort of a space opera. I am not kidding. This is real. And then, at some point I was just like, the fuck am I doing? I'm just gonna just go. Let's see what happens. It's not like I'm gonna publish it anyways, big surprise on all those fields, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you're really carving out your own corner in Gotham. So it seems like you are a Batman fan in some ways. What are some of your favorite Batman comics or runs from the past that you really enjoy?
Not a lot of them, really. The problem is I live in Croatia. Like my Batman influences were pretty much cartoon based and movie based. And that I'm just kind of like like you get influenced by what you have. And in Croatia, we never really had Batman comics. The Batman comics that I did get over time were Hush and what else did I get? I had a few more, but like my whole idea has always been kind of more uh, revolving around the actual comics or cartoon series because that was really big in Croatia back in the day when I was a kid.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because I really do see Batman animated series, that influence on this book in particular, something like Mad Love.
Yeah. The way I phrased it is
Mad.
Yeah, the way I phrased it is mad love to Harley Quinn is it's the ship leaving Krypton as it explodes. It's the parents in the alley and the pearls on the floor. It's the origin story. It's that like it's one of those things like I don't mess with what's been established because it's my way of paying honor to those who made it. For me, it is to build on those foundations, and that's why I've actually made that point. It's like Mad Love is Harley Quinn's origin story. Like that's the whole point. I'm not here to say that origin story is bad, so I'm gonna make it better. No, I'm here to elaborate on something else about it, about the whole concept, and then build on that because the whole 9-issue story arc of Harleen, the plan is to kind of have it be a story of her life, of this kind of section of her life that's all just messed up and chaotic.
Okay. Let's see. Well, we talked about your projects. Do you want to ask him our special question?
Yeah, so at the end of our shows, we have like a lightning round wrap-up section. And one question I want to ask you before we get to those is that it's been really cool to see you in the OmniBros chat. How long have you been watching OmniBros videos for?
About like I think about 2 months. I've kind of stumbled upon it because like for the longest time I've really gotten tired of the cynicism of the internet, so I'm kind of always on the lookout for some shows that just kind of chill and relax and just talk some fun stuff about comics, and talk about comics that they actually like, because my god, am I tired of people constantly saying this comic is bad and that comic is bad. Can somebody tell me what I should read and why? Thank you.
I totally agree with that. That's why I started my channel. I try to be extremely positive about comics. I don't get the appeal of a channel that's 100% negative about comics.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine to dislike a comic. I'm all about that. That's not a problem with me. It's never been a problem. But if you're just gonna keep harping on the stuff that you don't like and never just tell me, hey, but here's the stuff I like, it's like I'm never gonna discover anything new. I have no use for that.
Right.
Speaking of stuff you like, are there any current comics you're reading right now that you can recommend to read to our viewers?
Oh, for me, it's pretty much at this point, like it's pretty much anything by Mirka Andolfo, like that, and I've been predominantly going into some slice of life stuff, so it's been mostly manga and stuff that my wife does because I've kind of gotten bored with superhero stuff. Like I find the superhero stories these days have all kind of went super cosmic, hyper reality, everything, and I'm just like, can we just tone it back? I wanna read something that's more human and not gods all the time, So these days I'm more into kind of toned down stuff.
So Jess and I, as you can tell by our backgrounds, are avid collectors of nerd memorabilia, like comics, action figures, statues. Do you collect anything?
Oh yeah, I have an apartment that's way overloaded, and thank God I'm building a house because yeah, this isn't good.
Is there anything that you really focus on in your collection?
Listen, I had to outsource stuff of it to put it in my dad's house, because there's just all sorts of stuff. Like, I'm into video games, I'm into comics, I'm into movies. So I'm like, it's like, oh, what's that? A giant ass alien? Thank you, I'll have that. What's that? A predator? Thank you, I'll have that. A massive fucking 20 plus inch tall cloud strife. Yeah, no, I'll take that. Sure. Oh, what's that? Freaking spawn, massive cowboy spawn. Yeah, fine. It's on the way. I'm taking that with me. It's just like, it's everywhere. And the books, and the worst part is, like, whenever I make anything for comics, like, they send me samplers, and I've done hundreds upon hundreds of covers. So take that times like 6 or 7, how many of them they send me, and then the actual volumes, and then the hardcovers, and then the reprints. It's just like my apartment is literally, it's an episode of Hoarders waiting to happen.
I'll watch that episode for sure. Do you have like a certain piece or item that means the most to you in your collection that stands out?
Honestly, no, I like them all pretty much the same. Like, it's just I'm kind of one of those people who likes to enter a place full of visual noise and just go like, yes,
Right.
like, if I had it, I would probably love my sideshow stuff that I designed for them, like the He-Man, Skeletor, and Evelyn, but I don't have them. They actually offered it. I'm like, I legit don't have the room anymore. Like, I wish I did. Those are massive freaking statues. I'm just like, but yeah, if I had those, I'm pretty sure those would be my all-time favorites for now, until the Sunstone statue gets made, and then everything gets dethroned.
Oh yeah, the Sunstone statue. That's right.
How many sideshow statues are you designing?
Let's see. I've done He-Man, Skeletor, Evelyn. I worked with them on their giant ass Thanos. I was the part of a design team.
Oh wow.
I worked on a Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. I worked on their Captain Marvel statue. What else was there? I did the design. I did part of the design work on one of their Batman statues. I don't even remember which one that was. Mumra and Lionel from Thundercats. I think that's it. After that, my schedule kind of got buried, and I had to stop.
Yeah, I can definitely see why you're a busy guy.
Yeah,
it's
packed schedule.
Literally on a daily basis, I have to refuse about 10 offers for all sorts of gigs and jobs and stuff. It's like, it got crazy over time to a level that I like, when I was just getting started, it's kind of one of those, like, I'll do anything. yes, thank you, I will draw this. And now I'm just like, oh my God, I can't.
Well, it's great to be in a position to turn down work.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
awesome.
20 plus years of work, and working 8+ hours a day every day. Like, anybody can get into that position. It's just, you're gonna have the scars of it all. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a good news, bad news situation. Any way you look at it, and it just depends on what kind of a day it is.
Well, those were my lightning round questions. Jess, do you have other questions to ask before we wrap up?
I think he has done a great job of answering everything that we could possibly think of, especially about the future issues regarding Harleen and the other stuff that he's working on. That was the stuff we were really interested in.
Well, where can our viewers find you on social media? Where can they follow you?
Pretty much everywhere. You just write my name and you'll find me online. I have way too many social media sites these days, but predominantly, like, the ones that I actually actively interact with would be my Facebook and my Twitter. And for that, you just write my name and you'll find me.
Be on the lookout for him in the Omni Bros and Fangirls chat.
Yeah, I'll be there definitely.
Well, this has been great. I really appreciate your taking the time to talk to us. We learned a lot, and you're a very nice guy that had a lot of stuff that you shared with us that I really appreciate. We got a taste of what your life is like and what you're working on, which I think is the point of interviews, is to find out about the creator. So I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I will see you again in the Omni Bros chat sometime.
You'll see me in the chat, definitely.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.